Hello, hello. Welcome to the Mother Days.
Oh, she's come out of the COVID bubble. It's Sarah.
Oh my God.
Sarah
Hi,
and
everyone.
Teresa.
It's
Listening
Sarah
to
Wright
the Mother
Olsen.
And
That's
Teresa
right.
Palmer.
Oh
I
my
can't even
gosh.
get this intro right.
I can't get the intro.
She was like, my COVID brain. Oh my God.
I know.
Well, you look
I'm
like a
not-
supermodel somehow.
Oh, thank you. I don't know what. I'm sitting in front of a window.
So do I. That's my trick.
My brain is so fluffy right now. It really is.
It?
Like
a fluffy white cloud.
Well, I just scheduled this recording that I could record with Teresa so that we could put this out right away since, today is my 5th day of COVID. But I was an hour early because I gave her the wrong time.
She was like, are you dead? Is everything okay?
I was like, are you dead?
Where
are you okay? And I'm like, I've been sitting here for an hour and I'm just like, this is so crazy. I don't know what's going on. And I was like, oh no, it was me. It's my fault. Everybody told me about this whole COVID brain thing, but it's no joke. It has been. Well, for the first couple days, I couldn't even think straight. I couldn't look at my phone.
What?
I couldn't respond to anyone. I couldn't barely open my eyes. I definitely couldn't watch anything. It was so crazy.
So tell me, how did it first start? Where do you think you got it from? Who went down? What were all the symptoms of each person in the family? Give me the full lowdown.
I'm wondering if everybody out there is so old news. Why are we even talking about this?
Well, you managed to dodge it for 3 years.
I know, but I'm you guys, the goggle-wearing, mask-wearing, hazmat suit lady got COVID, okay?
I never thought it would happen.
We have to talk about it. Okay. So, yes. Someone close to us tested positive. And then we were like, oh, well, okay, well, we'll see how that goes. And then about 24 to 48 hours later, Eric started to feel off. And then he was like, he drank this smoothie that morning with whey protein. And I was like, no, it's definitely the whey protein. It's nothing else. You shouldn't have drank whey protein. I was like, that's the stuff that's messing you up right now. And then he sort of started to get a fever. And I was like, oh, this is not good. And then
it ain't the whey protein.
It wasn't the whey protein. And then that night he tested negative. So I was like, okay, we'll see. And then the next morning I went to check on him and he was down. And I tested him and he came up positive right away. And then I feel like the progression of that was then that day, Esme started to feel off. And God. I tested her and she was positive.
Oh my God.
And then of course now I'm redoing my sitting here because my back is messed up from all the laying down.
For the hour that you've been waiting to do this podcast.
Yeah, for the hour I've been waiting. No. And then, and then the progression after that was that the next day, so that was Wednesday, so then Thursday. So Thursday, Wyatt, Winter, and I all 3 tested positive. So it was Eric and then Esme and then the 3 of us. But I had no symptoms. Esme and Winter both had high fevers, and then Wyatt had he and I both had no symptoms when we first tested positive, and then his mildly started to come on, and then his came on really bad. Winter got a fever of 104, and so she was just kind of down and out. Eric was fully like me, in bed, couldn't focus on anything, couldn't do anything, was just kind of zoned out because the brain fog was so intense, and then you just feel so sick and I don't know. It's just bizarre. But Wyatt, poor thing, he had 104 fever and then he was throwing up.
Oh,
and
darling.
He threw up a few times and he was super nauseous. And I've just never seen him so uncomfortable. And his body was just walking around and it was
so worse than red eyeball. Wyatt?
No. Okay, so red eyeball Wyatt. I haven't asked him about adenovirus, if that was worse for him or not. But Esme said adeno was hands down the worst thing she's ever experienced.
Oh, my God.
So this for her was different. And I just think that they're different. I didn't have adeno because I had them. I guess I'm immune to it because I had it as a child. But this for me, so 24 hours later after I tested positive, then I started to get symptoms. And they were like, the first thing that happened was the same thing that happened to my friend, where like my legs felt like my bones were like aching and breaking. Like it just like was so intense, and like my muscles hurt everywhere in my like hips and my knees. And there was so much inflammation in my knees. Like when I would try to go up the stairs, I would just get jabbing pains in my knees and my head.
And what do you do when you have that many kids and everyone's sick?
Oh my gosh. Well, the first couple of days I helped Eric and the kids, like I helped everybody, you know, Eric came down with it like on Tuesday, and then by Friday I was down. So for that week, I was like taking care of everybody the best I could. And then once I was down, then the rules changed, and Eric was only like 50% better, but he had to jump into gear because I was like fully down. I couldn't get up. Like it was bad.
No.
And yeah, for like 2 days like that. And
what do you do when you're like nursing your child? So would she just sort of like flop around with you and just like nurse, or was like Eric able to distract Winter so that you could like really heal?
No. She's nursed more in the last 5 days that I feel like she's nursed combined in her life. That is how I feel. This is the part where I'm like, I feel for all of you breastfeeding mamas, because when you're sick, I was telling this to Eric yesterday, I'm like, it's a new level of motherhood because yesterday I still had a fever. When you have a fever and you're nursing someone all day long, all day long, she just keeps wanting to nurse. And I don't know if it's because I don't feel good, so she wants to feel close to me because I'm not myself, or she like is still, because none of us have an appetite. So it's like if she still doesn't have an appetite, but like that is fuel for her, sustaining her, you know?
Maybe
so
both.
I don't know yeah, it's crazy. So, I mean, I just took a lot of Advil, and like that would help knock down some of the pain in my body. And then, you know, I would just like lay there and stare. One time I was in so much pain, I looked at the bookshelf and read, like kind of mouthed every single book title and author to try to get myself through whatever that time was.
What? It sounds like labor. You know, when you try and like hold on to some random thing, I'd like look at things in the room and try and like draw pictures like as the contractions came to like distract myself from the feeling. Oh my God,
I was in so
Sarah.
much pain that I was like, okay, I'm just going to read every title and every author, and maybe my Advil will kick in by the time I'm done.
Oh my God. And you feel better today. So day 5. So the worst days was like day 3.
The worst day was, day 3. I would say, okay, so it's been 6 days since I tested positive, 5 days of actually being like sick. So the worst days were day 2 and day 3. And then yesterday was so much better. And then today I feel great, like really great.
God. Isn't it funny when something happens to you health-wise and you realize that you take health for granted, that even if like the following day after an illness, like you're still only 50%, like you will take that 50% and just be joyful for just feeling like 50% better than you actually were. I feel like that. I sometimes slip
Yeah.
Not slip a disc, because that sounds very dramatic, but I probably say I slip a disc, but I don't. But
wow.
I'm like, that's definitely what it is. But sometimes if I sleep weird in a funny position and like I've pulled something in my neck and it's like neck. The throbbing back and neck pain, like that happens to me maybe once a year. I like go so stiff and I just cannot stop thinking about people who live with chronic pain. I'm like, how can people survive this? I understand why like people get really reliant on painkillers and all those things. Like, gosh, we're so lucky to have health. Like that's the number one thing to be grateful for.
Me too. It's like, I mean, that's what, when, you know, we've talked about gratitude lists and stuff on here, like that is one of the number one things that I always go through my gratitude list is like my health, my children's health, you know, because I did the same thing yesterday. Like it was, each day kind of brought its own different challenge during COVID, during those 5 days. But yesterday's challenge was that it felt like my sacrum was like really, it was so intense, like right at the base of my spine. It was just like so much pain. And I kept thinking like, wow, this is crazy. Like people I know deal with chronic back pain all the time. And like, I don't know how they do this. Like I was wiggling and moving every which way to try to like, I just kept imagining myself hanging from something and someone like taking my hips and pulling them down to try to like pop that area.
Oh my God.
I was just like, why can't I get this to stop hurting? And then of course I wake up today and it's like, fine. And so, you know, it's something
it's just
weird
like hard and fast.
Yeah. And I think it's sort of, you know, they say that it's like this inflammatory response that happens in your body, right? So anyway, I have no idea. I just know that I finally got it. Okay.
You finally got it. And now you're good for a while. Don't they say like you now have some sort of immunity for a few months?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, maybe for like, I think I have it for like a week.
A week. All right, good. Well, at least it's not going to happen next week. So
True.
Jeez.
True.
Oh,
Anyway,
well, you're amazing. I'm so glad you guys are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. You made it. You did it. You're here. Oh my goodness.
So crazy.
I have been panic waking in the middle of the night, like checking my phone.
Oh my gosh.
Because I am about to be at my friend Susie's birth. And today, by the time this comes out, her due date will have passed. And maybe she's already given birth by the time this comes out. I don't know. But I have not been sleeping very well at all. And I can tell because I overdrew my eyebrows. Look at my eyebrows today. They're so dark. And it's because I'm so sleepy. And I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, what is that? Anyway, whatever. They just look like really dark brown worms above my eyes. That's okay.
That's what I was thinking.
But I'm so tired. I'm so tired. I'm juggling so much. We have so many people in our house right now. We have we have a 2-bedroom house here in Adelaide, and we have Mark and I, my mum, my 15-year-old stepson Isaac, my 21-year-old brother-in-law Guillermo, and my 4 children with 2 bedrooms.
What?
So the house
That's insane.
is insane. The house is insane. It's actually nuts. Like, right. And there's so many like moving parts. Like Mark is pitching for this big job today here in Adelaide. And then I'm working and then the kids have got to go to school, but the boys go to a different school to Poa, and then so I've got my mum taking Poa, and then I've got Mark trying to take the boys, and then I'm like, well, I'm doing a podcast, so someone has to look after Prairie, so I had to wake up my 21-year-old brother-in-law to be like, Guillermo, can you come and look after Prairie? Anyway, it's just been like pandemonium. I can hear all this chaos out there. I don't even know if I should go out and look. But it's been full on. And then, of course, I'm waking up like panicking in the middle of the night. Like, have I missed Susie's birth? And I'm having all these dreams that I miss it, that my phone dies or that something happens and she's trying to reach me. I had a dream last night that her husband jumped on a tractor and was like drove to my house and was like banging on all the windows like, she's in labor. Like it's so weird. I've got more anxiety about her birth than I ever had about my own birth. I don't know why. I think because I feel like so much responsibility.
Yeah.
I can't miss it. And I know that they're really relying on me to like help advocate for her in the birth room. And this is their first time. And I just know how tricky first births can be. Sometimes they're really straightforward, but because you're just thrown in the deep end and you don't know what the sensations are and you don't know what to expect, you're sort of getting thrown into this abyss, I think, as the birthing person. And so I'm like picking up on her giddiness and her nervousness and her excitement, but also being like, I've got to be the pillar of strength. I'm the only one, besides obviously the midwives that'll be there, but of like me and her partner and Susie, I'm the only one that's experienced this sort of transformative thing. And so I'm putting so much pressure on myself just to make sure it goes as smoothly as possible. Like I've packed a little doula kit. I'm like, I'm so nervous, but it's also really exciting. I feel like I'm having phantom feelings in my tummy, like I'll get a cramp. I'm like, does that mean she's having a cramp? I'll check in. I'm like, hey, but you also don't want to like be the person that checks in all the time as they're coming up to their due date. So I'm like, you just like, I'm here. If you need me, contact me if you want to contact me. But if you don't, like, don't worry. First babies tend to, on average, come later. So it's just, you know, I'm enjoying and also like just bugging out about this, you know, those final weeks of pregnancy and just that excitement but like in a way that's removed. It's really interesting. Even though I had that with you, because you're the only other birth that I've attended, I hadn't ever been to birth before. So I didn't know what to expect. Like your birth was my very first experience of birth ever. But now I've been to so many births, mostly my own, that I'm like, oh my God, this could go so many different ways. It's just
so many ways.
Exciting. Yeah. Anyway, so that's going on with me right now.
Oh, it's amazing. It's going to be so good. So beautiful to be able to like be the, you know, support person for your friend is really special. And
I know
she's going to love it.
I just last night I was like, oh my God, I need to pack the battery charger. Because remember at your house when I was taking photos, every battery died, like everything died. And I was like off the side charging camera batteries and like, it was so incredibly stressful that I was like,
no one expected it to last for as long as it did.
Well, I would know now. Now because
I mean, that was a long time ago. I bet batteries last a lot longer than they did back then.
I had this like janky ass. This is so me, isn't it, Sarah? I had this janky ass camera from 2006 that I had held on to, and that's what I took. I took pictures and like weird like Terrence Malick videos of your birth.
Oh my gosh, I know, it was amazing.
Old like weird camera, which wasn't like cool vintage. It wasn't like the cool 70s, 80s camera. It was just
it like a Canon or something.
It was literally like from 2006. It's the sort of like vintage that you say is vintage, but really it's because you can't be bothered paying more money to get a new camera. And I'm like, I pretended it was cool and vintage, but really it was just like old and I should have thrown it out. Anyway.
No, it's amazing.
So I'm equipped with my new iPhone and I'm excited. But yeah, Sarah and we are really excited because we're delving into a few different areas, which we are going to be talking about more in the coming weeks as we prepare for our 1-year anniversary of the Mother Days. Oh my gosh, it has gone so fast.
I know, it really has. We're almost there. We're almost to our first year marker, which is crazy.
crazy.
I can't even believe it.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. I mean, it's funny because somebody did tell us, like, once you get to episode 50, you're going to look back at the beginning and you're going to be like, what were we doing? And it is kind of funny, like, that we're in much more of a rhythm now. Like, when I look back at the beginning, we were trying so many different things. We were like,
oh my
ooh,
God,
let's do this, or let's try that. Or like, we have so many really funny, weird interests, so we were
yeah. Oh my God, like all the ghost stuff,
so much ghost stuff. And
for Halloween,
our listeners were like, that's not what we signed up for.
Oh my God,
like,
that
no
was
thanks.
my idea. I was like, because I had always wanted to do my own true crime podcast. I was like, can we, like, for Halloween, maybe I could get da-da-da. Anyway, so I am doing a sort of true crimey, like, mystery podcast with Susie, who's about to give birth.
Yes.
We are doing that. So we've only done maybe 4 episodes, so we're a little bit behind on that one.
No, but it's going to be great.
Sarah and I will be having some really exciting and cool offerings through Patreon, guys. So when we've fleshed it out a little bit more, we are going to talk about all the ways in which we will be having new, cool, interesting offerings for you guys. And we thought it would probably be the right time to jump on board that after we've been up for a year and we have such an amazing community. 2 of which I keep shouting these people out, but the other day I was at Mark's workshop in Adelaide and it was so cool. So my husband's like pivoted into doing like teaching and workshops, and it's been so sweet and amazing to see him just flourish in this passion, and he's such a natural teacher. I think Eric and him are similar in that way. Like there's sort of a natural kind of charisma when they're talking about something that they're passionate about, right? And like Mark just has that in spades. So it was so beautiful watching him in his element. But then afterwards, and I always kind of pop him for the last part of the workshop just to like observe. But also when he talks about acting, I really enjoy coming in and giving my perspective as well. So the last one we did here in Adelaide, I was there for like the last hour and a half, and it was really cool. He did this great improv thing where he kind of made this short film with everyone in the room, and it was really cool. And I got to be a part of it. Yeah, it was really cool. And everyone just jumped in the deep end and just like they were vulnerable and they tried things. It was so rad. Anyway, so at the end of the session, 2 different women came up to me and they're like, hi, like we're daisies. And they love the Mother Days. They were saying so many different episodes, which were their favorites, and laughing about different things. And it's so interesting to hear from the community, to hear the episodes that they particularly love or what makes them laugh. And it was so fulfilling to me. And I floated this idea. I was like, oh, we're thinking of maybe doing a Patreon and offering up these specific things. And, it was met with like such excitement that I think it's really helped fill like Sarah and I up to be like, all right, this is something that we're going to branch out to and into, and we're going to expand, which is really, really cool. I'm all about up-leveling and expansion. And so watch this space.
And just finding like other ways as well that we can actually connect with you guys, because I think that is so important. And we do really want this to feel like a community. I mean, when you guys DM us and write us messages and tell us your stories and stuff like that, we're reading those. Like I screenshot them and I send them to Teresa or our friend Cass does. And I'm like, constantly going like, oh gosh. And then, we'll reply back. But we so appreciate all the things. Like just recently somebody wrote and asked us about, they loved the road trip story and wanted to know like, how do you pack road trip food? And, somebody was asking us about bras for breastfeeding, and like keep sending in those questions, because we see them and we love them and we love connecting with you guys. And we think it's just like such an amazing and beautiful way to sort of like build this community together.
I wanted to talk about something that Sarah and I are going through a little bit at the moment, which is like the world feels like things are really shifting, and there's some really cool, interesting movements of people uprising and trying like fight for change. And obviously Sarah and I, we are a part of SAG-AFTRA. And so we're in the middle of a strike right now, which is really important, and it's beautiful work what's going on, and it's much needed, but it's also a really scary and challenging time for people because it means that there's no work. So in the small ways in which it's been affecting our family, one of the ways is that for the second half of this year, we had plans, which I always laugh about plans in our industry, Sarah, as you know.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre. People don't understand this. Like a lot of school mums at my Adelaide school here will be like, well, what do you mean you don't know where you're going to be? And I was like, that's just like our life. It's crazy. They're like, but what's your plan for the rest of the year? Even the like principal's assistant emailed me and was like, hey, we just wanted to like get some solid dates on like when the kids are going to be here.
You're like, I have no idea.
Oh my God, you guys have no, like, I can't tell you. Also, like we're in the middle of a strike. I don't know when we'll be working, if we'll be working, but you know, my manager rang me and was like, hey, I think you should prepare to not work for the rest of the year. And I was like, okay, cool. So if we're not working for the rest of the year, like what does that pivot look like? And for a family like ours, it's so wild because actually there's, in some ways, it's scary because I'm like, all right, we have the mortgage to pay. What's the plan? Mark has pivoted into working and, you know, doing his teaching, which has been wonderful and just something he's so passionate about. But I would just hate him to ever feel the pressure that has got to bring in income. I want him just to enjoy that experience. So Mark and I have been sitting here thinking about like, okay, what opportunities have this provided us? Well, the freedom to like make different choices for the rest of the year. Like what's something wild we've wanted to experience? What's something that like we haven't done before? Because now it's not like we're chasing jobs for the second half of the year.
Right.
So one thing we have discussed, and Sarah, you knew that this was a part of our plan, was this kind of, we already live a nomadic lifestyle, but like really going into the nomadic lifestyle of renting out both houses. So our Los Angeles house, we bought our dream home, but as an investment as well. It's to put people in it, to rent it, to share it. So right now it's currently being shared. So we're renting the house out. If we come to LA and go back into our house, there goes our main income stream for the rest of the year. So what we've realized is, cool, we are going to rent our Adelaide house out. So we have a renter coming in August 13th. We're renting our American house out through Airbnb. So we have people sort of coming in and out and photo shoots and whatnot going on. So essentially we're going to be flying into America with no plans, which is so crazy. Our only plan, this is what I was looking up last night, is maybe someone can reach out and give us some tips, because I was trying to figure out how to ask the community, because I know there are people listening out there who have done this kind of thing before, but we are newbies at this. Basically, we thought, like, what if we take the rest of the year to just travel around America? Mark can do workshops in different states around America. And do we commit to getting an RV, or do we drive our car and have a trailer with a bunch of tents and we go from campsite to campsite and literally tent it? So I don't need to be glamping. I'm the sort of person that can sleep anywhere, do whatever. Mark is like, oh, tents? I was like, yes, tents. How cool would that be? Let's just go tenting. So I
have a suggestion.
Yes, please. I want to hear. I want to hear everything.
Okay. So I think that you should, because it's going to be more than a weekend, because it's going to be more than a week, I think you have an RV and you bring tents. And here's why, is that you can do both. You can have a couple of tents for anybody who wants to tent, you know, in the tent area of the campsite. The RV you have for like, think
My mom.
about your mom, think about cooking, think about like just having that space. If you're in an RV that you're driving and like everybody's in rather than like pulling a trailer, that's different too. Because you're like spending a lot of time sitting in a car versus like the RV. Once you guys stop, you can move around, you can get into the kitchen, you can like, there's just a little bit more access there. Like we talked about this a lot because we were trying to figure out, do we pull an Airstream and go like all the way to Iowa to visit Eric's parents, or do we like rent an RV? And our plan was, okay, we're going to rent an RV. And then timing wise, it didn't add up to when we needed to be in Idaho. So we were just like, okay, forget it. We're not going to do it this year. But the RV was the plan. And the reason why is because we were going to bring tents because Wyatt was like, I want a tent camp. And we were like, great, we'll bring tents along and we can always tent camp, which will be so fun to be under the stars and do that. But for a few people that like really need to be in the RV to sleep at night, or if somebody gets sick, or like, it's just, you have to look at it as more of a long-term thing rather than like, because also you don't want to have to, you know, be like, oh, well, okay, now it's pouring down rain and we can't get the tents up. So we have to go get a hotel. And you're like spending more money. And it's like,
that's right.
Instead, you could just be in your RV and be like, okay, we're not tent camping tonight because the campsite's flooded and it's been raining. And you know what I mean?
Yes. So this is everything I've been thinking.
Okay.
That's everything I've been thinking. The only bummer of the RV was when we did our road trip. It's such a ginormous structure, like just to drive this huge thing around. When we went into like San Francisco, it was really hard. We were just this RV in the middle of the city. It was really hard to find parking. So I was like, do we bring our huge van?
What about the long Sprinter van? What about the like extra long one that's like, they're kind of skinnier and
they're
easier
so
to drive?
Expensive.
Oh, to rent them?
I was on outdoorsy.com last night looking to rent one, and they're $500 a night.
Oh my gosh, what?
I know. I was like,
That's insane.
That'll send us broke. Like, we're doing this so that we can like keep our income going on. Like, we're gonna go have an adventure. Like, we don't want to go and spend like that much money a week. So I know. So then I was like, because we've got a van. I mean, it's a Toyota Sienna van. It's like, you know, you can put the seats down and like sort of turn it into a bed. I'm like, oh, do I reserve? You could pull the seats down, but then every night, every time you pull into a camping place, you got to pull out the car seats.
Yeah.
You got to get everything out, and you go. So I was up until midnight last night, Googling and looking at like glamping spots, and even like ordering a yurt. Like, do I just like get a yurt that we pack in the car and we like put the yurt up? And Mark's like, it takes 2 to 3 days to set up a yurt. Like,
it takes a long time. You got to look for like, I know that would be, it's so funny if there weren't so many of you that were going to be in this space, it would be one thing, but because you could just like get one of those car top tents that's so cool that you just like put on top of your car, and that would be amazing. But there's so many of you that you can't do that. So it's like you might just have to suck it up and get a maybe skinnier RV, but have an RV in the city. Like, you're just gonna have to do that. I cannot
wait to be podcasting from the road. Telling you our crazy stories.
You're going to be like,
oh my God.
The service sucks here, you guys. Sorry.
Yeah. I'll be like coming in and out, and Sarah will be the only one that you can hear. You're like, what happened to Teresa?
100%.
I know. So I don't know how to do this, but basically I want any tips, anything you can offer, any like amazing spots across America that you're like, you've got to get to this place. You've got to try this campsite. You've got, like, I just need to have a smorgasbord of different ideas so I can start really planning the trip. And I'm so excited. I've been talking about #vanlife forever, although with us it's like hashtag like the biggest van of all the land to fit every single one of us. Like literally 3 adults and 4 kids.
Googling like, you know, like looking up, can I rent somebody's like converted school bus or like, you know, something cool that you could like rent for a while. I feel like there's something, put it out there. Like think about exactly what you're looking for and then
manifest it, babes.
And manifest it, baby. You know, we know how to do that here.
Yeah, girl. Yeah. Although I've been quite shit with the manifesting lately. I have to say, like, I have been disappointed in my manifesting skills. I feel like I can get disenfranchised. It's just so strange because this is not me generally. Like I'm Miss like positive, woo. Yeah. And then the last few months, I've found myself dipping into like some like negative self-talk. And I'm like, wait, what is happening to me? Why is this happening? And I think some of it's really stemmed from this like place in my life where I have so many different passions and so many different interests. I feel like spread thin. Like I really love my acting career. I love doing all those things. But then I come home to Adelaide and I'm not working and I'm literally like just with the kids in nature and doing mum run.
It's
and
so
I'm
good.
freaking just everything about it I love so much. And I think it's almost like not an identity crisis, but like how can I have can I have all these things? Can I have the career? Can I have this? How do I make it all balance? How do I make it all work? And then also financially, if I decided to turn away a little bit from my career, and who knows what's happening with the industry right now, it feels like it's in a really crazy place of change. And there's some radical things happening behind the scenes that I wonder what it's going to look like once we come out of the strike, like how different it's going to feel. So I'm kind of preparing myself for big life changes in some ways. But it's like when the unknown is a little bit scary, I found myself getting wobbly, which is not like me. So sometimes I felt like a little bit dysregulated. And because I am always the one who helps emotionally regulate Mark. And the problem is if this happens to me, he's such a great pillar of strength. But if it happened to us at the same time, like 2 weeks ago, where I was like, I just don't know. And I started going down and then Mark joined. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, this is like the end of the world. Like I saw this thing on Instagram the other day. I'm like, okay, there's this amazing woman on Instagram and she was like, you can get hot. Let's say your partner gets home from work or whatever. And they come to you and they're like, babe, I'm at a 30%. I'm at a 30%. This is how I'm feeling. And then you're like, cool, I got the other 70. We're good. And then one of you comes in and it's the other way around. It's like, oof, I'm feeling 10. And the other person's like, cool, I'm in it. I got 90. And I was like, that is so cool. And she was like, and then sometimes you're both going to be like, I'm at 15. I'm also at 15. And then you just have to realize that the day and the next few days, like, it's not going to work the way that you guys expect it to work. It is just, you're just going to be in it. But at least there's the understanding that you're both like running at 15%. Cool. Things are going to turn shitty for a bit and that's okay. At least you're announcing where you're at emotionally.
Yes.
So that one day I was like, oh God, like we can't both go down. Like this isn't okay. But it's good. Like Mark's like, well, welcome to the real world, Teresa, because now like you know what it feels like to have like feelings of anxiety and feelings of like fear. And of course I do feel those ways, but because I'm like perpetually pretty like joyful and bubbly and positive, it took me out. I was like sending messages like to one of my friends, Carolina, and she was like, are you okay? Like I saw her at school drop off. She was like, well, were you okay? And I was like, what are you talking about? She was like, oh, the other day when we were texting. And I was like, what did I write? I went back and looked at my text and I was like, it's rough, babe. Oof, it's so rough. Things are really rough with all these like crying emojis. I didn't realize like she had tried to like reach out and catch up with me. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I was just really feeling it. I was in such a feeling state and I was feeling really triggered.
That's me over the last few days. I've been sending a lot of crying emojis to everybody. Like,
oh my God.
Boo, COVID.
Oh my God. I know you've dealt with anxiety over the years. Like, how do you, when you get in a headspace where you're like, oh my God, it's feeling negative, I'm unsure, I'm feeling afraid, like, do you have your specific ways that you're like, all right, this is how I'm going to pick myself back up again?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it depends on like what you're talking about exactly. If you're talking about work, or if you've like auditioned for something and not gotten a job, or like, yeah, or if it's like a job where you're submitting an application, or, you know, whatever it is and you don't get it. I've had so many times in my life when I've gone and been like, wow, okay, I have, you know, like $27 in my bank account. There's about $5 of gas in my car. There's 3 bags of 10-cent ramen in my cabinet. And I got to figure out how to get through the next couple of weeks. Now, this is, of course, when I was like younger, when that was happening, but it was such an up and down for so many years. For me, that, you know, in partnership, it's different because, like, you know, I was with somebody before I was with my husband, and partnership was a little bit challenging. And so everything was very up and down with financials. And then I, you know, went into partnership with Eric, and like, you know, for a long time, I was like just trying to work and make money and like save money and, you know, everything. And like when Eric and I got married, you know, it changes because you feel like you're really supporting each other. So you have each other's back when those things happen. But still, as everybody on here that's listened to our podcast knows, like I've always tied self-worth to making money. So making money and like bringing in an income and being a breadwinner has always been so like a big thing for me. It wasn't always something I knew that was a big thing, but it was just like important. And I think that, the best way that I can describe it is that I have to verbally say out loud, I'm feeling anxiety. I'm feeling anxious. This is becoming overwhelming for me. I'm thinking about it too much. I need to let it go. I'm going to focus on the things that I love and that are important to me, that I'm grateful for, what I already have, not what I'm desiring. And then for some reason, it just kind of melts away. And the next day, it's always a little bit easier. And then the day after, it's a little bit easier. It also helps me to like write things out, you know? I just remember like when I was, you know, modeling in Chicago, and I had just spent my last bit of money on getting my car out of the tow lot in Chicago because my car got towed. And I was like, wow, I don't have any money at all. And I just felt really down. I had just went and worked in Greece, and I had made a lot of money in Greece, but then you have to pay so much to your agency. So, and then my rent and like all of that. So basically I was just like broke again. And so in the mail, I was thinking like, gosh, I just need like, if I just had like a couple $100, like I would be able to get through the next month and then get a job and like be able to keep going. And like in the mail the next day, my grandmother had sent out of nowhere, she had no idea that I was having these thoughts, obviously, but she had sent me a letter, and the letter said, I just had this feeling that you needed this right now. And it was a check for $200. Yeah.
What?
And I was just like completely in tears, and I called her and I was like, you have no idea. I just yesterday was like, I need $200 to get me through this next month. I cannot believe that you just sent me a check for $200. And I put that into my bank account. I was able to eat all of my meals that month, go out and try to book another job, booked a job, was able to like, you know, keep going. But at that point I was like, what am I going to do? Just like turn around and go home. Like I had $0.
So that has happened to me a number of times in my life.
Yeah.
Where you get right down.
And just
I remember right before I booked Bedtime Stories with Adam Sandler, I was like living in LA. I was renting this house, and I had like $200 left, and the rent was coming up, and then it's the pressure to book the job to be able to pay for the thing. And I like sheepishly with my like tail between my legs, like went to my dad to be like, Dad, and then like got the phone call, like, oh, you booked this Adam Sandler thing. And I was like, oh my God. Sometimes I feel like the universe will take you to a place where it's I have reframed it as, and I got this from, if anyone watched A Discovery of Witches, who's listening, I actually saw this on Deborah Harkness's Instagram, and instead of calling it stress, calling it divine pressure. And the divine pressure is there in order for the breakthrough to come. And I was like, oh my gosh, that feels so on point right now as I'm hitting this crossroads and trying to like figure out, you know, all these different decisions in my life. It's been so interesting. And it popped up on Deborah's Instagram right as I was having a feeling of like questioning a lot of things. And I was like, oh my God, that was exactly the little like gem, the little gift from the universe that I feel like my team of light like popped in there for a reframe, divine pressure, which was so beautiful. I loved it.
I love that you said that. I just had that happen to me the other day where I did something. It was such a weird experience. So the other day there was a person in our community that he's like an older person, and he said something really inappropriate to me. And at the moment, I didn't realize what he was saying. He was talking to me about a movie that I did. And he goes, do you give it to Eric the way you gave it to that guy? Then if you do, then he must be like a really lucky guy. And for some reason, I thought he was saying, 'cause in this movie, I was playing such a like badass that I thought he meant like, I was like giving it to him, you know, like that. And then
God.
And it was like, it happened so fast, and my kid was there and like
really pervy.
Oh my God, it was so pervy. Anyway, my kid was there. And so I was like, I just was like, yeah, it was a great movie. And I like I didn't really register what he said until I walked away. And then I was like, wait, was he? And then I was talking to Eric about it, and Eric was like, wait, what? And I was like, so upset, really. And then all of a sudden I felt like shame. And
that
weird.
You didn't say anything? Or you were like, or
shame
just like,
about like me in the film, and then shame of
like, oh my
like,
God.
And then I was like, wait, what am I doing? And I was like, this person doesn't get to decide. Like that they don't get to treat me this way because like I played this character in this amazing movie. Like,
oh my God.
They don't get to like treat me a certain way. Right. And so I basically said to Eric and I had a long talk about it, and he was like so upset, and so was I. And so anyway, I was like, you know what, when I see him again, I'm actually going to go up and say something to him. And Eric was like, okay, I fully support that. And we happened to be like in this public area. And this is like the day before we all got COVID, by the way. But we happened to be in this like public area, and there's a bunch of people. This man was eating with his son. And there was like a bunch of other people that we knew around, like sort of. And I was like, oh, he's with his son. Like, in my head, I'm thinking like, well, do I go up to him when he's like eating and his son is there? And is it going to be disrespectful to his son to like have this conversation? And I was like, why am I worried about his kid and like him? And
he
his
did
son
it in front
like,
of your kid.
And his kid's like my age, you know? So,
oh my God.
And then, you know, my kids are around. So I'm like telling my kids to stay back. And basically I just took a big swallow, and my heart was racing, and Eric was like, walked with me, and we walked over to the table. And the guy was like, hey, I said hi to you guys the other day and you didn't say anything back. And Eric was like, yeah, well, there's a reason for that. And then I was like, well, actually, the other day, you know, you said something to me, and I didn't quite realize what you said to me until I walked away. But you said this, and that was really disrespectful, and it made me feel very uncomfortable. And I actually can't believe that you said that to me, and I don't appreciate it at all. And he said, oh gosh, I was just kidding. And I was like, no, I know. I know that you were joking, but that's not a funny joke. It's a really disrespectful joke, and I don't like it.
Gosh.
I don't appreciate it. And he goes, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And I was like, thank you for your apology. And I walked away.
Oh my God. Sarah, like this is next level. The fact that you were like, okay, you sat in the feeling and that you went back, and you're a better person than I. Like, honestly, I was the whole time being like, I am such a people pleaser that I would see. This is like my problem. I would never go and do that.
No.
I wouldn't.
I
like it's the best, most amazing thing that you did that.
Too. But I was like,
because now he's not going to do that to another person.
That's why I did it. Okay. That's why I did it. It's because I was like, I bet you men in positions of power, like, you know, this person or other people like him, who, you know, are like, make jokes like this. Like they don't think twice about it. They just think it's funny and they're used to doing it with their like golfing buddies or like whatever it is. And so for them, they're like, oh, this is just a joke that I say to, you know, any woman in my life. And like somebody has to tell that person who's nice, who people like, who like has that charm and whatever. That's not okay. You can't talk to people like that. It's actually really disrespectful. It made me feel shameful and weird, which I didn't tell him that, but I'm like, it made me feel uncomfortable. And
you're amazing.
And I was like, I had to do it. Anyway, I had to do it for my kids. My kids were around. So my son sort of walked up grabbing Winter. She was like crying and pulling her away. What was happening? But my son was just like, wow, I heard mom. I heard what she said. And I had to do it for them and for, you know, anybody else that he would say that to. But the reason why I thought of this is because I saw something on my friend's Instagram, same kind of thing where after I did it, I was like, I thought I would feel like so much better. I felt uncomfortable still. I felt like, whoa, I just did something like really outside of my comfort zone. So like my body felt like weird, you know? And I just felt sort of off still. And then I read this thing where she had put up and it was like, and it was Angie Banke, who, you know, we have interviewed on here before, but it said something about like doing something outside of your comfort zone, even when it's scary and hard, like you have to do it and take that leap, you know? And I was just like, yeah, this was that moment. I had my heart in my throat. I was like walking up going like, this is not normal for me to do this, but I have to. And I feel like when you do things like that, stuff shifts in your life. Like you do have there's something that shifts.
There's like a crack open.
And it's important.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
I'm so proud of you. I feel like I've had moments in my life where I'm like, I'm going to go and say something to that person. And then I don't do it. I cower away from doing it.
Yeah.
Like
I've done that too.
I'm going to like let this be my little beacon of like, oh, I can do it. I can do hard things and it can be uncomfortable. But it's the right thing to do. You can do hard
things. Glennon Doyle, we love you. You can do hard things.
Yes, we can do hard things.
You guys, this actually, you know, we weren't sure what we were going to be talking about today, but this turned out to be a great episode. Oh my God, I love you. So good. Thank you, daisies. And
thanks, guys.
We will see you on the next one. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And hopefully the next time I won't have COVID. Okay. Bye.
Woo, bye.